I'm Matt Eldred. How are you today?
Hi, Ashley. I'm well.
Well, I'm so thrilled that you're able to join my class with Ames Community College. This class is Communications and Marketing Planning for Nonprofit Organizations. As a longtime expert working in the nonprofit field, I thought it would be excellent to have you talk with the students. There are about 15 people in the course, and it's part of Ames Community College Nonprofit Leadership Academy. So if students go through like 6 courses, they can earn a certificate. How did you get to be where you are as a nonprofit leader?
Sure. Well, thanks for letting me be here and hello to your students. This is a course that I think will make a big difference in your life and hopefully will set you on some career paths for helping a lot of nonprofits. So thank you for your willingness to serve nonprofits. But I've been in the nonprofit world, I think my entire life. I'm a preacher's kid from Nebraska. So I was a nonprofit kid from the time I was born, I think. I remember growing up in a home where we had foster children in our home. My mom was a part of the social services of our local county. And so I remember working with them at a young age. I was in Special Olympics as a student volunteer in junior high and high school, got to coach Special Olympics teams. And then in college, my degrees are in education and physical education, and I have a master's in educational leadership. And in college, one of my first jobs was working with a couple of adults with disabilities and helping them with their daily routines and schedules, and then worked my way up. And when I graduated from college, I became the director of that program called Martin Luther Homes in Nebraska,
Oh,
working with adults
wow.
with disabilities. So I've kind of been doing nonprofit work my whole life, but specifically in my career, started in college working with nonprofits with adults with disabilities. And then I've been in education and early childhood for the last 25 years.
Yeah, so Matt, how did you get to TLC Learning Center in Longmont to be their
Yeah.
executive director?
So TLC Learning Center is a 69-year-old nonprofit early childhood program in Longmont. We were founded in 1956 by a group of parents who at the time had children who were a little different. They didn't know exactly what was wrong, but they were different than some of their other children. And at the time, their options were to either keep them at home, they weren't welcome at school, keep them at home, or send them off to an institution for people that would be institutionalized. Those were the options in 1956. There were no special education services. There were no services for adults with disabilities. And families in Longmont said, we need to do better for our children who, just like our other children, have unique needs. And that's how TLC was formed in 1956, about 20 years before special education was even introduced in our country. And so very innovative, very inclusive from the beginning of our time here at TLC. That's been our mission, is to serve all children to make sure they get what they need to be successful. I came in 2013 as the executive director, but I'm familiar with TLC Learning Center. If anybody is a native of Colorado or been in Boulder County, you may know the Tiny Tim Learning Center. That's been our legal name for about 20 plus years. We've been TLC Learning Center now for about 12 years, but that is what a lot of people still know us as, the Tiny Tim Center. And so I came in 2013, kind of at a time when the organization was looking at making some shifts because financially we weren't doing very well. We had just moved into a new building, which was about 3 times the size of the building that we came from. The board of directors did a wonderful job of raising money. We owned the building free and clear. But what we realized is that it takes a lot of money to run a building that is 3 times the size of where we came from. And it took us about 6 or 7 years of losing money for the board to finally say, we've got to do something different for this organization. And so I came at a time where we really had to make some changes in our business model and some of the services that we offered, not changing our mission, but really changing how we deliver services. And I've been here since 2013.
Well, Matt, for transparency, I should tell the students that I serve on the board of TLC Learning Center as a volunteer board member. One of the reasons I appreciate TLC so much is the mission. I have 2 sons. They both needed speech therapy, one for 7 years, one for 9 years. And we had to hustle, especially when they were toddlers. They didn't have speech therapy where they went for daycare. And so we had one of us or a grandparent or even a great grandparent would have to go retrieve them, take them to the speech therapy, then take them back to school. It felt, looking back, like a lot of hullabaloo. But
Yeah.
moreover than your program model, I love how you talk about TLC. I think you're an incredible spokesperson. I wonder how strategic planning has played into shifting with the business model and now with your current capital campaign. Was
Yep.
any of that written in a strategic plan?
Yeah. And that's a really good thought. When you talk about a business model and what it takes to operate a business successfully, and we talk about nonprofits and what does it take to operate a nonprofit, sometimes folks really disconnect those. And I hope that your students that are in the room, you're in here because you're going to be development directors, you're going to be writing grants, you're going to be figuring out how can organizations and nonprofits be successful. But I hope that what you'll hear is that running a business and running a nonprofit, there's not a lot of differences. You still have payroll taxes, you still have employees, you still have expenses. I still have a trash bill and a light bill, just like a child care center across the street, even though I'm a nonprofit. And so shifting that mindset of being in the nonprofit world, still of running a successful business, I think is critical and key. Our board of directors, I've been here now for almost 13 years, and we've been through 3 strategic plans. And each time in our strategic plan, something around successful business model or marketing. We need a marketing plan or we need financial sustainability. That umbrella is still, I think, really difficult for nonprofits to understand that, yes, you're a nonprofit and there are some bonuses with that where you can raise money to do certain things of an organization. But at the end of the day, you're a business just like any other business that have expenses and you have ways of generating income, and when the expenses exceed your income, you can be in some real financial trouble, whether you're a small business or a nonprofit. And so, yes, we've had a strategic plan now. We've been through 3 different strategic plans since I've been here. And I will say that what I love about strategic plans is that it helps give you some guidance, vision, and purpose and a plan for the next foreseeable future, whatever that is, 2 to 5 years. On the flip side, sometimes a strategic plan can be done and the board says, great, we did it. Give us a monthly update or a yearly update a year from now, and we'll relook at it again in 3 to 5 years. That is probably the worst thing you can do with a strategic plan, is to put so much work and energy into a guiding document of the organization and then not use it on a daily basis. And so, yes, we have a strategic plan. We have goals and objectives around 3 key priority areas. And I would say that we try to tie our strategic plan into everything we do, even from basic hiring practices of a new employee or a monthly staff meeting or the way that we enroll a new student. If your strategic plan can't be implemented on a very daily practical level, sometimes there can be a big disconnect between your strategic plan, guiding principles, goals, and objectives, and what you do on a daily basis.
Interestingly, I know that TLC utilizes the constituent relationship management system called Bloomerang.
Yep.
One thing I like about that vendor is that they have quite a few educational tools, and they do have some information about strategic planning. They have 9 examples. I've given students in the class those. Tell me how it influenced how you decided to frame the position. Amy French Troy has the position of development manager,
Correct.
but she also engages in communications and outreach through social channels, right?
Yep. 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 Yes. Yeah. So Amy French Troy is our development manager, and that's really a big umbrella title that means if there's anything fundraising or donor relation or community communications, events, all of that falls under her. And so you mentioned our structure. we have two basic programs. We provide childcare for children 6 weeks to 6 years old in a childcare center. And then we have therapy services serving children birth through age 12, occupational, physical, and speech therapy. So we have a director over our therapy department. We have a director over our education department. Those are our two core revenue sources and our services. But our third department is the development department, which really covers everything that you just mentioned, all of our grants and foundations, fundraising events, donor relations, and that is a really big job. What we've done with Amy's position is we've helped by expanding that and bringing on consultants, contractors. We have a part-time event person now that is under her.
Oh, how
But this,
exciting.
yes, so it is, when I came, we had a grant writer, and the grant writer also helped with our events and did an annual report. And it was kind of a hodgepodge of things that, again, as nonprofits, sometimes can be seen as kind of, it's one of those we would like to have a position or we would like to have, but then it means that we don't do a good job of uh, bringing in different sources of revenue, overseeing grants, donor relations. We get a $25 gift, but then we don't follow up with the thank you note or the year end, which is really important to do year end paperwork. In Colorado, there's a form called the DR form that donors get because we have what's called the Colorado Child Care Tax Credit, where people that give to child care related organizations get extra credit off of their state taxes. If you don't do that well, donors won't do it again. And so these are really important things to do as an organization. And so that development department is really critical.
I started laughing when you said that because it reminds me, I used to do that for
Yep.
an organization that had enterprise zone tax credit, similar to child care tax credit, but different. But we think of communications, I do, of often being fun and you want good visuals, but sometimes the communication is as down and dirty details as filling out these state forms and making sure your donors get them in a timely way.
That's right. Yeah, making sure your donors get it in a timely way, making sure that you're properly registered with the Colorado Secretary of State. We have an event where we do a raffle, and to do a raffle, you have to go through the Colorado Gaming Commission. If you don't do that in the right way, you could really jeopardize your nonprofit status. So there are a lot of critical things that aren't just fun pictures of kids saying on social media, look what this kiddo did today. That's the fun part. But I would say equally as important, if not more important, is to make sure that you are in good standing with the Secretary of State. Your 990s are filed properly, that you have all of your records in place for your donors. And it never fails. We try to do it at least once a year where we recognize all of our donors and send out that paperwork in January. Um, but right now, we're getting people that are pretty frantic saying, I can't find my form. I can't find my letter. I know you sent it to me a couple months ago, and then they need it again. And so being able to be responsive to donors, getting them the information they need when they need it in the form that they need it in, will go a long way in helping you not only do a good job for your organization administratively, but it helps in that what I would call donor cultivation, of cultivating good relationships with donors. And you mentioned Bloomerang. In Bloomerang, there are a lot of good donor data management systems, and I've worked with a lot of them, from Blackbaud to Donor Source, you name it. But what I like about Bloomerang is, again, I'm a special education, physical education teacher. It has a thermometer where it's a hot and cold thermometer based on the engagement of your donor. And cold donors obviously aren't as engaged as hot donors. And so it's a really good tool that people like me can quickly get in to see how is this donor engaged in our organization. It gives us a list of all of the communications that have happened, our newsletters that go out, when do we send the forms, and then their engagement, how much have they opened. And some of the analytics of Bloomerang, I think, is really could be beneficial to folks that are looking at donor recruitment, donor retention, donor engagement, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I agree. No donor management system is perfect,
Right.
but it's something that I found to be useful, and I primarily like their educational information.
Yeah.
Um, with the strategic plan, one thing that Bloomerang points out is that your plan has different purposes internally versus externally.
Right.
How did it influence your external marketing communications?
Right. So yes, that's a really good question. I think the most difficult thing to do is to tell your story in a succinct way that donors will listen to. We have a 25-page document of our strategic plan with our 3 different areas, goals and objectives, timelines, notes and spreadsheets with those timelines. That is not something you want to send to a donor. Now, there are a couple donors, and like Ashley on our board, would appreciate, recognize, understand that level of detail. But what donors really want to see is they want to see what are your key areas, what are your progress, and at a high level, we have a 1-pager of our strategic plan that we send out: mission, vision, values, diversity statement, and our 3 core areas. And I have a 25-page document. And so, yes, communicating your strategic plan in a way that is digestible, that people will actually look at and read, versus getting into the weeds so much, is it's a fine art. It's not black and white. There is a real fine art to doing that.
And I really like what you have, let's say the messaging you have on social media. So I'm going to pull up Facebook here.
Okay.
But while I show that, I'd like you to reflect upon how you and your team get from the planning, the goals, objectives, to the action plan. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not instantaneous. There's a lot in between.
Yep.
So as I'm scrolling through your page, please share with us like how you stay on top of it, like from the real planning to the nuts and bolts
Yep.
of implementation.
Yes. And so, and again, I'm really glad you all are taking this course. The strategic plan is owned by the board of directors. The board of directors are responsible for the vision and the creation of the strategic plan. However, you talk about action plans and implementation, that is usually done by staff. Now, there are nonprofits that their board of directors, what we call a working board, are also the workers of the organization. But in general, nonprofits have a board of directors. They have a leader, whatever that is, an executive director, a CEO, and then they have staff. That could be a 1 staff member or 100 staff member organization. And so a lot of times that can be a real disconnect of the strategic plan, of the creation versus the implementation. And so I would just really encourage in the strategic plan to have those folks that are a part of the implementation, a part of the creation. Even though that is really a board level exercise, I have found that when staff are engaged and involved in the creation of the strategic plan, they are more invested in the implementation, the documentation, setting goals and objectives, and being able to measure those, because they're the ones that are going to be doing the work. And so have them a part of the creation.
I agree. There's
Yeah.
more ownership.
Yes.
And a big part of your organization is inclusivity.
Right.
That's since day one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a buzzword that we've used in the last 10 years. We have since our beginnings, like I mentioned before, wanted to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table, everybody has a voice, and everybody is heard. We believe that from every student in our organization, every staff member of our organization, and we want to make sure that our board members have those hats as well. Like you just mentioned, your personal experience as a parent. We need those parents on our board, because even though you're a professional consultant and you have a lot of experience, and that's really why we roped you into this board level, having a board that is also diverse and has those different points of view of your organization is really critical at all levels.
That you need to have a passion, a personal reason for caring about that mission.
Yeah.
As I was scrolling through your Facebook page, and I'm going to go back there right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like you said, that TLC values inclusivity.
Right.
This post is so sweet from March 19th. It shows how this individual has been connecting with Sherry Carmen, the occupational therapist, for many years, and may be nonverbal, but yet
Mhm.
person's name is Leo, could pick the parts of this art activity,
Yep.
which is awesome. But then I go further, and this is a sweet picture, just a little spring cleaning on the playground.
Mhm.
Then there's something that's a little bit more interesting because it's
Mhm.
more direct about inclusivity.
Right.
I feel like some people may be, what the heck? Are you being an advocate? Are you getting into politics? But this relates to your core founding and your core elements.
Right. Yep. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think that I could speak to each one of those pictures and where it relates to our strategic plan. This particular one that you mentioned about, this is about the Department of Education, or specifically about making sure that all voices are heard. Um, that's not something that we just, again, have started because this is a controversial or a political issue. The nice thing, and not all of your students are going to be able to be in organizations that are bipartisan, but if there is anything that can be bipartisan, early childhood seems to be the place where uh, most people will recognize that high quality early childhood education and giving every child the best start is important. Also, it's an economic impact issue. It's a workforce issue. And we found that no more true than during COVID, when folks couldn't go back to work, when they couldn't find a place for their kid to go because their child's childcare center was closed. It became an economic crisis. And so
Yeah.
it's been really nice to be able to be at the table. And again, in a bipartisan way, talking about, yes, we want every child to get what they need to be successful. That is really important. We want every child to enter kindergarten ready to learn. We want every child graduating from high school at grade level. We want to reduce teenage suicide and teenage pregnancy and teenagers of incarceration, which a lot of that gets back to their early childhood experience or the lack of their early childhood experience. And so we've found a way, and this is what I would really highly recommend, is it is okay to be in politically charged conversations. We don't shy away from that. I do think, however, that you need to understand that your donor base may come from very different perspectives and backgrounds, and helping them understand that what they're bringing to the organization is also very valuable. And so, again, not dismissing any person that cares about the mission of the organization and wants to impact it by financially contributing. Sometimes that means that I have to listen to conversations of families, that my own family that are in Nebraska, that have a certain view, and they will come to our fundraising event and give money to TLC because they believe in the organization. We also have legislators, both at the city, at the county, at the state, and the federal level, who will want to use us as a story. And we've sent families to the Capitol to advocate. And actually, the last governor's State of the State address, he recognized TLC parents as some of his talking points about what children need to be successful. And he pointed to TLC parents that were in the crowd to be
Wow,
recognized
that gives me
for their
chills.
experience. Yeah. So, I would just encourage people to, while you may have your own political views and everybody is entitled to those, when you represent the organization, you also have to make sure that you represent the organization. And so I hope that we do that in a way that is balanced. Yes, there are, like that one post, probably there are some folks that might disagree with that, but at least it allows us to have conversation, which gets back to our core values and our fundamental of how we started, which is every child belongs. We believe that every child needs to be included, and that's not something new just because of somebody that thinks we need to do something more inclusive or less inclusive. That's been part of our beginning.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you were talking about that, it made me think about how you need to differentiate target audiences.
Yeah,
And you talked during COVID, or you referred to COVID and how it became an economics issue
yeah,
and employment issue. I know that early childhood is expensive. And so
yeah,
some people, one parent, if there's a two-parent household, may
yep,
be opting out of the workforce so they can stay home because it's also expensive. But a key for employers, corporate leaders, small
right,
business owners, is that they're having a hard time hiring. Like
exactly,
they actually want more people in the workforce.
right,
So this shows me how with your strategic plan, as you drill down, drill down, drill down, it becomes pretty granular because you need specific
Yeah.
messaging for different audiences.
Right. Yeah. So it's probably important to take a step back and tell you that we have three priority areas of our strategic plan. And I'll just mention them. Number one is to maintain a healthy culture and a sense of community. That's a big, big priority goal, and there's lots of things under that. Priority two is that we want to partner with other supportive community services to address the whole child. So it's really about collaboration, partnerships, building those network of resources around partnering with our community. And number three is to identify and develop a more sustainable business model. And that includes some of the financial things that I pointed to. But if you can see back in those posts that you had, you could argue that that picture of the kiddo with the little
A
example of
heart.
what he did in his session, that is a very specific activity, but I can point that to maintaining a healthy culture and sense of community where we're building partnerships with our families to make them feel like they're a part of what we're doing at TLC, and what we do, we value in what they're doing in their home. That directly ties to to priority number one. It also, that child in particular, to point number two about building partnerships with other supportive communities, that child was a referral from another nonprofit organization serving children with disabilities. And they came to TLC because they know of the work that we do. And now that child is getting occupational and physical therapy. And so that directly speaks to priority number two. So you can see how what you do day to day needs to point to these big, grand priorities. And yet you need to have specific measurable goals and objectives that you can make progress towards or set goals to fulfill your strategic plan. Does that make sense?
Totally. Thank you for giving those examples. And this post
Yep,
relates to your, I think, third area about sustainability.
that's right.
So for example, TLC
Yep,
has this annual Kentucky Derby party.
yep,
It's really fun. People dress up, women wear hats, men wear really cool ties,
yep.
but it's all for the purpose of raising money for TLC.
And you can see there it's specifically for our TLC scholarship fund. And so we just put that out there that part of our mission is to serve families who can't afford the services that we offer, the child care and the therapy services. And so we do two major fundraising events, the Kentucky Derby, like you said, this is the 10th year of this thing. We'll net about $60,000, and 100% of those proceeds go into our scholarship fund to support children either in childcare or in therapy. And again, so when we're talking about building a reliable and sustainable business model, that's point number three in our strategic plan. A part of that is events. And I will caution that events are really expensive, they're labor intensive, they are stressful, and yet they can also, sometimes it's hard to measure the impact of what I call friend raising. Fundraising, you can pretty much see with dollars what you're bringing in. But the friend raising, I think sometimes is equally as important in building those relationships and cultivating donors or cultivating a philanthropy of giving attitude towards the organization. And so it's sometimes challenging when you think that the fundraising event is only bringing in, at the end of the day, $5,000 or $10,000. Is it really worth doing? And I do think that those are good questions that organizations need to wrestle with. In particular, organizations like TLC, that we've been doing this for almost 70 years now. The Derby is 10 years old, but the reason the Derby is 10 years old is because 25 years prior to that, we had a gala event called the Trip. Well, I call it the Trip Auction. It was basically where we had a theme and we sold trips around the world, and that was kind of the theme. Well, that was great in the 90s. Well, what happened in the 2000s is, as nonprofits expanded and everybody knew that they needed to do fundraising, everybody did a gala event with a live and a silent auction and a paddle raiser and a sit down dinner and so now you have donors in your community that are getting not one or two invitations, but they're getting 10 or 12 invitations
Yeah.
a month or more to go to good events that promote the organization. So how do you differentiate what you do, and how do you continue to be fresh and new in your ideas to make sure that you're financially sustainable as an organization. And events is just one way of doing that. They're good ones, but I would caution that they also take a lot of time and energy and money. And you can see the Derby for us was something that the board decided about 11 years ago. We had seen a decline in our trip auction where we were raising 50,000, then 30,000, then 20,000. And it became a point where the board said, is this event financially benefiting the organization, getting back to our strategic plan? And the answer was no, it really wasn't. On the other hand, the board said, but we can't just do away with it and not replace it with something. And that's where the Kentucky Derby came from. And now that's in its 10th year. And so I think that events are great. I think that they also need to be evaluated regularly for their relevancy, as well as the organization's time and money that is put into that. And I would say that the time and money that is measurable are, the ticket sales and the auction items and how much does it cost to put on the event for event rentals and food and all that. And then you get a bottom line number of, all right, our net is this. What that probably leaves out is the staff salary time. And if it is taking you 6 people 80% of their time for 6 months to put on this event, is that the best use of time and resources? And those are really
Yeah.
hard conversations to have.
Yeah, nonprofits should not just be party planners, like, no. And
Right.
I like how like this event nets 60,000,
Right.
and you are also honest that that probably doesn't take staff time, figure
Yep.
in staff time. At the same time, I know that it's not taking your staff 6 months to put it on. They've figured out how to do it. It may take half their time for 2 months, or I don't know.
Right. Yep.
But you analyze that return on investment.
We do.
Um, Matt, I realize that I've taken more of your time than I said I would, but you are just awesome. Before we close, I want to point out something funny that's in your background.
Uh-oh.
Well, what everyone can see is CU Boulder.
Yep.
But truthfully, someone else probably wrote that there, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to, let's see. I thought I had my background blurred, but yeah, do you see that CU?
Yeah.
Yeah. CU in my background. So I'm a Nebraska product. I'm a product of the Midwest. And so if you're from the Midwest, you know that Nebraska, we have no professional teams. The closest thing is Kansas City and Denver. So Nebraska football, and I would argue Nebraska volleyball, has become our professional team in Nebraska. One of our students at TLC Learning Center is now alumni. I believe she's 10 or 11 years old. She's in 5th or 6th grade. She still comes back and helps us as a reading buddy. She helps us with events. But one of the best things she likes to do is to break into my office and leave me little notes or poke fun at me. So she created CU, which is not the University of Colorado. She created a university called California University, and it is her vision to uh, start a college. And this is her logo that she has created,
Oh,
and she left that for me as kind of I think it was a dig of, Nebraska's not all that. California University is really where it's at. But the real purpose behind that is that she has a dream to be a college president someday. And you can notice that you can't really see the writing down below, but she has some challenges. She's dyslexic. She has challenges reading and writing. But I leave it up there to remind me because it says California University rules, ROOLS. The rules.
that's darling.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's my reminder. And I think it's really important as you are a part of organizations, if you can't buy into the organization and if it can't live and breathe within you, it's probably not a career where you're going to want to stay. You've got to find organizations that you're passionate about, that you care about, because people are going to ask you, why do you do what you do? And if you say for the paycheck, that won't go very far. It's got to be something that you believe in and that you value. And I certainly do that here at TLC Learning Center. I believe in the mission and have been here for a little over 13 years now and excited about what we're doing next. So thank you for letting me be here. And I'm really excited. If any of you would like to come and take a tour of TLC Learning Center, if you'd like to see firsthand about what we do day to day, I would invite you for a tour. You're welcome to come anytime. And like I tell everybody, if you want to rock a baby or read a book, we have all those things available.
Well, thank you very, very much. And I so value your time and I think you're a stellar leader. So keep it up.
Thanks,
Thanks, Matt.
Ashley.
Bye.